Hello, a warm welcome to you in the Ghatna Chakra book video. Let's begin this journey where we will present every topic in a simple, clear, and exam-oriented manner.
It's pretty wild to think about how just 2 words buried in some legal document could literally change thousands of lives. Well, today, that's exactly what we're digging into. We're looking at a legal concept that shapes everything: land, jobs, and what fairness really means when a massive new project is on the table.
So, let's just make this real for a second. Picture this. A brand new highway is planned, and it's slated to cut right through your town. The government needs that land. So the big obvious question is, who gets the check?
Now, your first thought is probably the most obvious one, right? The landowner. The person who has the official deed, the title to the property. They get paid. Simple as that.
But see, that simple answer is where things start to get really interesting. What if the law is actually designed to look a lot deeper than that? What if just holding the piece of paper isn't the only thing that actually matters?
And that brings us to this crucial legal term, the person interested. I want you to think of this as a concept that's designed to cast a much wider net. It recognizes that when land is taken, the impact ripples out way beyond just the person whose name is on the deed.
So, put simply, a person interested is basically anyone the law recognizes as having a legitimate stake in the land that's being bought up. It's kind of like the law's way of hitting the pause button and saying, hey, wait a minute, the impact here is a lot bigger than you think. Now, the official definition, it starts with the one we all expect: anyone claiming an interest in the compensation. Yeah, that means the owner. But you gotta look closely. See that little Roman numeral 1? That tells you this is only part 1. This is just the beginning of the story.
And this is exactly where we start moving beyond that deed, beyond that simple piece of paper. Let's dive into the other kinds of rights the law actually goes out of its way to protect, even when there's no formal ownership involved.
To really get this, let's imagine our first character. Think about someone whose family has lived in a forest for generations. They don't have a formal title deed from the government, but their entire existence, their culture, their whole way of life is tied to that specific piece of land.
And boom, here it is, right in the text of the law. The second category explicitly includes traditional forest dwellers who stand to lose their rights. I mean, that is a really powerful statement. It's the law acknowledging that a connection to the land can be cultural and historical, not just financial.
So, what do we even mean by forest rights? Well, it's way more than just having a place to live. We're talking about the right to access the land itself, the right to use its resources to survive, and, crucially, to maintain this deep cultural tie that you just can't put a price tag on.
Okay, let's switch gears. Let's bring in another character. Imagine a farmer, and the only way they can get their tractor to their main field is by using a little dirt path, a path that happens to cut right across their neighbor's property, the same property that new highway is about to plow through.
And wouldn't you know it, the law has a specific word for this exact situation. It protects any person who has an easement on that land. It's a really important and honestly often overlooked legal right.
So an easement is just a fancy legal term for the right to use a piece of someone else's property for a very specific reason. That path for the tractor, that's an easement. Utility companies running power lines across a field, that's an easement too. And losing that access, well, that has a real, tangible cost.
And this brings us to a really important distinction we need to make. Ownership, that means you hold the title. But an interest, that means you have a legally protected right that is connected to the land, even if your name isn't on the deed. The law says both of these are valuable and both deserve protection.
All right, now we're getting to the last category, and you could argue it's the broadest one of all. This is where the law steps back and acknowledges that the impact of a big project can create this massive economic ripple effect, one that goes way beyond the physical property lines.
To wrap our heads around this, let's meet our last character, a local shopkeeper. Now, her little store isn't actually on the land being bought for the highway, but it's right next to a neighborhood that is getting torn down, and pretty much all of her customers live in that neighborhood.
And check this out. The law has a clause that actually protects her. The definition of a person interested expands one more time to include anyone whose main source of income, their primary livelihood, is likely to be harmed by what's happening.
You can see the dominoes fall, right? The land is taken, the whole community is forced to move away, and poof, the shopkeeper's entire customer base is gone overnight. Her business collapses. She has zero claim to the land itself, but her livelihood is undeniably destroyed because it was acquired. And under this definition, she is a person interested.
So after going through all these different examples, the forest dweller, the farmer, the shopkeeper, you might be wondering why. Why go to all this trouble to create such a broad, inclusive definition? Well, it all comes down to finding a more just and fair balance between progress and people.
And really, it all boils down to this number, 4.
That's right, 4 distinct categories that are not just separate little rules. No, they're designed to work together, to weave this powerful legal safety net that's meant to catch anyone who might otherwise fall right through the cracks when a major project comes to town.
So what's the big takeaway here? It's that the law can be, and in this case is, sophisticated enough to see beyond a simple property deed. It's built to place real value on deep cultural connections, on practical rights of access, and on the economic fabric of an entire community. The whole goal is to calculate the true cost of progress.
And that brings us all the way back to where we started. Who gets paid when that highway comes through town? Well, as we've seen, the answer is, it's complicated. But here's the thing. It's complicated on purpose, because a simple answer is almost never a fair one.
And that really leaves us with a much bigger question to chew on, doesn't it? By defining interest in this incredibly broad way, the law is forcing us to confront a fundamental challenge. How do we, as a society, build the things we need for the future without completely sacrificing the people, the cultures, and the livelihoods that exist right here in the present?